This is part two to the two country, one good model. Again, we're looking at the market for running shoes. Now we're going to do our welfare analysis and see who's made happy and who's made unhappy by the opening of these markets to free trade. So let's start over here in home, and we're in autarky. So this country's not engaged in trade. And what do we see? Consumer surplus is in blue, so consumers get all that. Okay, and producer surplus is in red, so producers get all that. And economists are going to like this because this market's not being interfered with, and that's the most societal surplus that you can get by finding that price of P autarky, whatever that price is. And at that price, maybe, I'm just putting some numbers on here, maybe 6 units would be sold. 6 pair of running shoes are sold. Now, this is home. Keep in mind, this is home in free trade, this is home in autarky, so we're not looking at home and row in this example. I'm trying to show you the difference between autarky and free trade. So now we're in free trade. You saw in the last module that once we opened to free trade, that row shoes were cheaper, and they were brought into home through international trade, through the international market, and prices fell to PW, and maybe in this case PW was $8, if you recall that from the previous example. So if that's true, well, what winds up happening? Well, before, consumer surplus was that triangle. Now consumers get not just the triangle they got before, but they get these pieces too, and they buy more shoes, so they get this too. And how many more shoes do they buy? Well, we learned from the last module that 4 shoes were imported, so at this lower price, fewer domestic producers would want to make shoes, right? That's the upward sloping supply curve, so maybe they'd only make 4 there. 8 would be demanded, and where do those extra 4 come from? Well, those 4 are imported from row. 4 units are imported. Okay, so consumers at home get 8 pair of shoes, only 4 of them are made at home, the other 4 are made in row, and they get all that consumer surplus. So their area is definitely bigger. That's a lot bigger, a lot more enjoyment on the consumer's perspective. Now let's look at the producer surplus, and we see producers get everything below the prevailing price and everything above the supply curve, which is that. No doubt about it, producers are made worse. This area is going to be smaller than this area. So producers, not an S, that should be a P, producers are worse off. Undoubtedly. But here's what economists would say and why they like free trade. Overall, societal surplus is bigger. Here, societal surplus was the combination of these two. That's these two, right? And society gets these right here, this piece as well. Consumers pick that piece up. So what winds up happening is this piece, let me outline it, flipped from producers to consumers, right? That flipped over into consumer surplus, and consumers picked up this piece. Producers wind up losing out. They lose this piece to consumers, but society as a whole is made better, and it's by that amount. You can take the area of that triangle and figure out how much better off society would be because of that. Now what we're going to wind up seeing, and where we're going next with all this material, is that producers are not going to like this arrangement. They're going to want to get some of that surplus back, so they're going to lobby for some kind of tariff or taxes or trade barriers or something, and that's called protectionism, and that's where we're headed next.